This tutorial is for 4th grade, Module 6, Lesson 8. In this lesson, we will look at both composing and decomposing decimals. By composing, we mean bringing decimals together to rename them as a greater place value unit, or in decomposing decimals, we will break them down to rename them in smaller units. The first direction says to use the area model to represent 250 hundredths, and then we're to complete the number sentence. Let's look at the picture first. I have 3 area models. Each model would represent one hole if it were completely filled in. So I have one hole here, a second hole here, but my third picture is not completely filled, so that's not a complete hole. Let's see how this relates to 250 hundredths. One whole is the same as 100 hundredths. So there's 100 of my hundredths. I have another whole completely filled, so that's 100 hundredths. 100 hundredths plus 100 hundredths would equal 200 hundredths. But if we look at our third picture, half of the area model has been filled in. So half of 100 would be 50 hundredths. So when we add that in, that's how we get 250 hundredths. So that's what's shaded in our picture. The first question is, how many tenths are represented by 250 hundredths? Well, my area models have already been divided into tenths. Each column is 1/10. So I have 10 tenths in my first picture, another 10 tenths in my second picture, so that would be 20 tenths, and then 5 more in my last picture. In all, I have 25 tenths, or 25 columns shaded in. Now, that's the same as how many ones and tenths. Well, we said that each of my area models is one whole. So I have one whole here, one whole here. So that's 2 ones altogether, and then I have 5 tenths in my last picture. To write this as a decimal then, we would say we have 2 wholes and 5 tenths. That means that 250 hundredths is the same thing as 2 wholes and 5 tenths. In the next section, we're going to decompose whole numbers and decimals using place value discs on a place value chart. We'll start by showing 2 ones on our chart. I'm going to draw a place value disc showing 1 whole, and then another one showing 2 wholes. So there's my 2 ones. The question is, how many tenths is equal to 2 ones? I'll take my first disc and I'm going to decompose it into 10 tenths. We know that 10 tenths is the same as 1 whole. So I'm going to write them as decimals using my place value discs. So I've taken that 1 whole and I've decomposed it into 10 tenths. Now we need to do the same thing with the second whole. And there's the second whole number decomposed into 10 tenths as well. That means that 2 ones is the same thing as 20 tenths, because I have 20 discs in my tenths place to represent my 2 ones. Let's move to the next problem. This time I have 2 tenths. So I'm going to show that on the place value chart. So here's 1/10 using a place value disc, and another tenth using a place value disc. Now we have to determine how many hundredths make 2 tenths. I'm going to follow the same process. This time I'm going to take my tenth and decompose it into 10 hundredths. 1/10 is the same thing as 10 hundredths. Now that I've taken 1/10 and decomposed it into 10 hundredths, I need to do the same thing with the other tenth. And now both of my tenths have been decomposed into 10 hundredths. That means in all, 2/10 is equal to 20 hundredths because I have 20 discs in my hundredths column and each is 1/100th. Now in this example, I'm going to start off with 1, 1 and 3/10. So I'll show my 1, 1, and now I'll show 3/10. So I have 1/10, 2/10, and 3/10. Now I need to show how many tenths I have in all. That means I have to take my 1/2 and decompose it into 10 tenths. I'll do that right now. And here I have my 10 tenths. That is the same thing as the 1/2. The question is, how many tenths do I have altogether? Well, I have those 10 tenths that I got from my 1/2, but I have 3 more that I had at the start. So altogether, I have 13 tenths. That means that 1 and 3/10 is the same thing as 13 tenths. Next, we're going to decompose the units to represent each number as tenths. If I have 1/2, that's the same as 10 tenths. In fraction form, that would be 10 tenths. So 10 tenths is equal to 1/2. If I have 1 and 7/10, that means I have 10 tenths for my 1/2 and 7 more tenths, for a total of 17 tenths. If I have 10 and 7/10, my 10 would be 10 wholes. Well, since 1/2 is 10 tenths, then 10 wholes would be 100 tenths. And then if I add in my extra 7 tenths, I have a total of 107 tenths. On the other side, we have 2 wholes. That would be 20 tenths, since 1/2 is 10 tenths. Next, I have 2 wholes and 9 tenths. Well, the 2 wholes is 20 tenths, and then I have 9 more, so that would be 29 tenths. And finally, I have 20 wholes. Well, if 10 wholes was 100 tenths, then 20 wholes would be 200 tenths, plus the extra 9 means it would equal 209 tenths. We're going to follow a similar process in the last section, only this time we're going to decompose the units to represent each number as hundredths. 1/2 would be considered 100 hundredths, because 100 hundredths is equal to 1/2. If I have 1/2 and 7/10, then I have 100 hundredths for my 1. 7/10 would be equal to 70 hundredths, because each tenth is 10 hundredths. So I have 100 hundredths for my whole number, 70 hundredths for the 7/10, for a total of 170 hundredths. And if I have 10 whole numbers, then that would be equal to 1,000 hundredths. And if I combine that with my 70 hundredths for my 7/10, I would have a total of 1,070 hundredths. In the last section, I have 2 whole numbers. That would be equal to 200 hundredths. And if I have 2 whole numbers and 9/10, that would be equal to 290 hundredths, because 9/10 is the same as 90 hundredths. Here I have 20 whole numbers. Well, if 10 whole numbers equaled 1,000 hundredths, then 20 whole numbers would equal 2,000 hundredths. And I have the 9/10, which we just said is equal to 90 hundredths. So altogether I have 2,000 hundredths plus 90 hundredths, which is 2,090 hundredths.